Earlier today, Bethesda Game Studios did an AMA for Starfield. In this, we got to hear from both Emil, the lead game designer, as well as Shen, the lead quest designer, as they answered a variety of community-asked questions on Starfield. These are two very high-level writers at Bethesda, and they gave some super interesting answers about the game, sharing a bunch of new details about companions and exactly how that will all work, but also getting into more of the lore tidbits and giving us a bit more about the backstory on Starfield. But I also have a question for you. Yes, you, James. Did you know that you could turn your next wallet into a Hennessy Bronco Velociraptor? Well, now you do, and that's thanks to today's video sponsor, Ridge. The Ridge wallet is incredible. It holds up to 12 cards and even has room for cash, all while staying incredibly slim. Believe me, I don't miss this bulky dad wallet at all. And this wallet's even smarter, featuring RFID blocking materials and over 30 colors to choose from. You'll definitely be able to find a style you'll love and it'll last because these things have a lifetime warranty. But you can save your front pockets as well with the Ridge key case. This can securely hold up to 6 keys, and you could even get 30% off if you pair it with a wallet. But I know the real reason you're still watching is Hennessy. Right now, without spending a cent, you can enter to win a Hennessy Bronco right on Ridge's website, or just get 75,000 cash if that's more your speed. But if you do want to spend, you'll get one bonus entry for each $1 spent, and custom Hennessy products like this one will come with up to 1,000 entries. And I'll hook you up too. If you go to ridge.com/JuiceHead or use code JuiceHead, you'll get 10 bonus entries at checkout as well as 10% off your order. Act quickly. If you've ever been considering getting a Ridge, now is the time to jump in. And I think a great question to start off with here is how you start the game. One user asked about how approachable this game will be for those who haven't played a Bethesda game before, as well as how deep we should go into our character's backstory before you even begin with Starfield. And here the devs describe how your character will largely be a blank slate and our own headcanon. Although you are going to start the game in a specific spot, we know that we will begin Starfield as a miner, that's even what the entire character creator is themed as, but also of course there's going to be traits and backgrounds, but in Starfield there will be an option to select an anonymous background and no traits. So if you want to, you will truly be able to enter this game as a blank slate, as well as Emil describes his own experience with his character. As for going into a character's backstory, that's entirely up to you. I'm all about that headcanon. For example, my latest character is a working schlub named Mitch Dombrowski. He's a husky, good-natured space trucker, and while he'll do whatever he needs to defend himself, he'll never shoot first. He's like Han Solo's sweeter older brother, and yes, there are traits and backgrounds that support this kind of thing, as well as they do start to share some explicit details on traits here. Somebody asked if we get the kid stuff trait, that being the trait where you have parents in Starfield and you must send money back to them each and every week, but will our parents be generated based off of our character's look, or are there standard parents put in place? What benefits might there be? And thankfully we got a nice yes answer to this. Our programmers on our new face tech were excited to make a function that we could try to match your custom face and then create the two parents. So they are based on what your character looks like, although the specific math involved is a bit beyond me. We had similar tech in our previous games. That's pretty awesome. If you've never seen it, in Fallout 4, Sean's appearance will be based off of how you model both Nate and Nora, and it seems like this will largely continue with Starfield, if you do take this trait. But Emil here also shares some interesting details about how the actors who play the parents get really into the role, and even how you can get stuff from your parents. Although there's no further elaboration on what exactly that stuff is. Definitely sounds like there's something special or unique that you could only get from your parents though. A popular question that we have an answer to now is, are you going to be able to play Starfield in a pacifist mode without killing anyone? Unfortunately, the answer here is no. You will not be able to complete every mission in Starfield in a non-lethal playthrough. They do describe how they considered it, but it didn't work out. But there are systems implemented that will help you play mostly pacifist. They describe how you could use the new persuasion mechanic to convince someone to not fight you, and we hear some more details on this system overall. The speech challenge game is added in specific scripted moments, and we try and add one into most quests where important characters confront you. But even further, Starfield will feature non-lethal weapons. There's some good non-lethal options, whether it be through dialogue or by using a non-lethal weapon. Those can be used in certain situations, honestly a lot of situations. Though I couldn't comfortably say you can complete the entire game without any killing whatsoever, the Settle Systems is mostly civilized, but it can be a dangerous place if you go off the beaten path, and you're absolutely going off the beaten path. So now us going off the beaten path is definitely not surprising. I mean, we're literally chasing down some mysterious artifact. Of course, we're going to go to some curious places, but the fact that non-lethal weapons are in, yet you still cannot beat the game in a pacifist way is pretty interesting to me. It definitely sounds like there's going to be a relatively large story moment or just scripted event in game where you have to act and take somebody else out. Which, speaking of story, that was the next major category of questions we got into to, and it was actually some of the best answers we got. One of the best questions I saw was somebody asked if you could be a double agent in-game, specifically asking if you could join the United Colonies and secretly be working for the Crimson Fleet pirates all along. And thank God, yes, you can and will probably be doing exactly that. So first off, all the playable faction questlines can be completed independently, which in its own right is incredible news. Unlike Fallout 4, this would suggest that you can complete each of the questlines for the main factions without being cut off. There isn't going to be that moment where things start to conflict or interfere with each other and you have to choose one faction to side with. Or at least you could do the individual questlines without having that problem. But specific to being a double agent, the Crimson Fleet storyline does feature you being an undercover agent inside the fleet on behalf of UC SysDef, a specific military branch of the United Colonies. But whether you betray the fleet or UC SysDef is a choice you will get to make. So it's not like it's a hidden feature or mechanic where you could do a questline for one faction, then turn around and try and run to the other faction, and rather just during one of the major story moments for the Crimson Fleet pirate questline, you will have the opportunity to be a double agent if you want to. And there was a follow-up question around this about how much you could actually change a faction's politics from your actions. And what we do here is, I don't really want to spoil anything, so all I'll say is you have a specific role, job, mission in the faction questlines. The Freestar Collective and United Colonies are giant organizations, and the work you do for them is important, but it's not like you gain complete control over these factions at the end of those questlines. Likely what Emil is referring to here is the UC Vanguard and the Freestar Rangers. We've heard in the past how each of these will be joinable by us, so it sounds like we'll be largely interacting with these two big factions in a military capacity by joining their military forces if we want to. And frankly, I'm pretty happy about this. I don't want to lead the United Colonies. I'm glad Starfield's making us more of just a cog in the machine as opposed to becoming a general in the first 20 minutes of the game. Another great question was, what is going on with the various religions in Starfield? We have both heard about and seen a variety of religions now, and they get really in depth with this answer on their lore. Existing IRL religions will be a part of the Starfield universe, with folks of all religions and denominations out there, but we don't really focus on them. Instead, we highlight 3 new ones specific to the game. And honestly, this isn't super surprising to me. We have heard for years now how Starfield is intended to be a more serious game that will deal with serious topics. So many of the characters having real-life religions behind them makes sense. But at the same time, I am happy that this game isn't getting too controversial, and it's mostly going to be diving into the new religions when it comes to questlines. The first mentioned is Sanctum Universum. The members here are called Universals and believe that God very much exists somewhere in the universe, that a higher power is guiding us all. Specifically, they believe that humanity's ability to travel the universe and grav jump is God's way of saying, I'm out here, come find me. And we hear about how this is a relatively new religion that is only a couple of decades old in the Starfield timeline, but there is also the Enlightened. These folks are essentially organized atheists. They don't believe in any kind of higher power. Rather, they teach that human beings have to take care of each other, and they practice what they preach through various community outreach programs. We do know that both of these religions will be located in New Atlantis, and all 3 religions mentioned here have traits associated with them, so you could become a member yourself. As well as then there's the House Varun. In the game, you're not really sure what the complete truth is, but the gossip among the guards is this. A colony ship sets off for a new world, making grav jumps along the way. After one of the grav jumps, one of the passengers claims he spent that time communing with a celestial entity known as the Great Serpent. What was a few seconds for everyone else was much longer for him, and he brought back a mandate, which is basically get on board or be devoured when the Great Serpent encircles the universe. Is it true? I ain't saying. And Emil even describes how recently he got a tattoo around this faction. To me, each of these 3 religions sound incredible. It feels like each of the 3 have a very distinct mantra and motivation behind them, but I feel like Bethesda did a really good job at differentiating them. I'm sure different players will cling on to a different one depending on their own beliefs, but also just what they want to roleplay as. And we seemingly will be able to do that. All 3 of these religions have traits associated with them, and are mostly going to be based out of New Atlantis. But yeah, to me, I really think they knocked it out of the park with each of these 3 religions. One user asks about the history of the mechs we can see in Starfield. Emil describes how the mechs are left over from the Colony War, and that is specifically the Colony War, not wars. Both sides, United Colonies and Freestar Collective, had mechs, but the Freestar Collective really mastered them. The United Colonies had mech too, but they also relied on the controlled alien beasts from their Xeno Warfare division. Both of those were outlawed with the armistice that ended the Colony War. I'm not saying there's an old mech battleground in this game. Mechs, not usable, no, they're in ruins. So as suspected, there is an in-universe explanation for us not being able to use the mechs, although we have seen a variety scattered around in some of the backgrounds of the gameplay. But what is far more interesting to me is this Xeno-warfare division of the United Colonies. That sounds positively epic. It was seemingly also outlawed, and we can see we do have some kind of skills around animal mastery or obedience, but it seems like Starfield has a much deeper lore around this. Although unfortunately, since it was outlawed, I don't think we'll actually see the United Colonies using creatures in combat at all. As well as just on a high level, Emil describes that the quests in Starfield are the best Bethesda has ever done. But then, switching over to some of the more gameplay or feature-focused questions, we get some of the real interesting details on genuine mechanics in Starfield. One of the first ones here is how smuggling will work in Starfield. There are going to be specific items that are considered contraband, meaning they're pretty much illegal everywhere, and yes, you could hide them using special ship modules you can purchase. So, don't get caught with those harvested organs. The economy here is going to be fixed, but prices of bought and sold goods can change based on the skills you choose. I think this is going to be a pretty interesting mechanic overall. We did see how in the Direct your ship will be scanned as you enter certain areas, and that's where you're going to get scanned for contraband. And I am pretty curious, what exactly are we going to be able to smuggle? Or if smuggling is even going to be a good way to make money at all, or more of just a miscellaneous mechanic they added in. With how much criminality there seems to be around Neon, I have to imagine that there will be some smuggling missions in and out of there, particularly with some Aurora, the chem that is only allowed legally in Neon. The economy being confirmed as non-dynamic is a bit disappointing to me. That was one feature I was holding out hope for, but something Starfield does have is jail. As if you're caught doing something illegal, you will go to jail. It seems like it'll function pretty similar to Skyrim. You can elect to go to jail or pay a fine when you're arrested, or even resist arrest and try to escape. And there will be some quests exploring this. There's civilization, there's government, and there are laws. And in a couple of cases, we actually explore the themes of crime and punishment in our futuristic universe. This sounds really awesome to me. I love the idea of a questline exploring the legal system of our spacer future. And we also know there's going to be elements like bounties in Starfield that you can get with the major factions where you're going to be wanted as you enter their space. Overall, it sounds like the criminality element in Starfield got a bit more features and a bit more depth compared to past games. Starfield will feature purchasable homes. There's going to be one in all of the major cities in-game, and some will even be quest rewards, while others you'll have to buy. Starfield's going to feature 20 named characters who can join your crew, with 4 being from Constellation and having the most depth and interactability. It also seems like these are going to be the 4 companions you are able to romance in-game. But any of those 20 named characters can follow you around like companions do, and even carry your things, which is imperative. Although even beyond each of those, there's going to also be just generic crew members. In addition to the companions, you can hire generic crew members to work at your outpost or on your ship. So Starfield will basically have 3 tiers of follower. 4 real and fully fleshed out companions that have romance and full-scale quest lines, 16 simpler companions that can still follow you around like a companion typically could, and then just some miscellaneous crew members who will work for you, pretty akin to how settlers functioned in Fallout 4. Although companions in Starfield will definitely have a larger role compared to Fallout 4. When we first began Starfield pre-production, we looked back at our previous games and realized how popular and effective the companions were. So they were a big priority for us, and we really wanted to tie them directly to the main quest. There's some really big moments with them specifically. In other interviews, we have heard how at points companions can even speak for you, so it truly sounds like they'll play a much larger role in Starfield overall. Companions are going to come with a variety of skills, making them better or worse at certain things, but they can't level those up. How those skills come or how they're going to stay, but it is confirmed here that some of those skills will stack with their own skills, and how you'll really feel the benefits of the ship and combat related ones. Getting a boost to your shields or seeing your companion laying down fire with a weapon they're proficient in are some pretty sweet moments. And companion or worker rights were considered here. One user asked if you're going to have to pay your workers regular salaries, but it was clarified that people just get a one-time payment when you hire them, and that payment could even be lowered depending on which type of skills you do have. When asked about their favorite immersive elements of Starfield, we hear about a few cool aspects of the game. Things like readable books will be making a return here, but also things like notes on bulletin boards. And Emil specifically really likes some of the environmental storytelling they're bringing to the table with this one, but there's also going to be small details like Constellation members members having patches on their spacesuits that are tied to which skills they are proficient in. Starfield has this really nice visual where all of your skills are patches that are going to get more detailed as you level them up. I have to imagine Bethesda is going to make a ridiculous amount of money by selling physical versions of these patches, and I mean, if they don't, hey, I will. There's also a question about whether or not the sim will continue running when the game is closed. Like, will your outposts continue generating resources even when you're not playing? But thankfully the answer here is no. I think if they included that, it would feel very mobile-esque as a feature. And that was the Q&A. I really like this one. I feel like the questions were fine, but the dev answers were really top tier. It felt like they went into a lot of depth and detail, and especially Emil just seems incredibly hyped and excited for this game. The only time it really felt like they were holding back is when they were getting into some spoiler territory, which I completely understand and honestly prefer. Although fortunately, that is not the only news to come out around Starfield today, as Starfield has officially gone gold. And most of you watching right now will be able to start preloading Starfield starting tomorrow. The only people excluded from this are Steam users, as unfortunately Steam users are going to have to wait until August 30th to start your preload, but any Game Pass members, even the PC ones, you could start preloading tomorrow. As well as earlier today, the first entry of a series of videos from Adam Savage and Tested that are going to be building a real Starfield spaceship just dropped, and this too is epic. I highly recommend giving it a watch. I'll have it linked in the description, but overall it feels like today the Starfield marketing really went into a different gear. Things are starting to ramp up, and with less than 3 weeks until release, they're probably not going to be slowing down anytime soon. If you're interested in more Starfield details, check out this video, as we just learned a bunch of other things about the game.